What's happening, everybody? Welcome into this Thursday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube. I'm your host, Andy Herman. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to join me to talk some Packers. Got a fun episode lined up for you today. I'm going to be going over my predictions prior to the season and just kind of seeing what I got right, what I got wrong, and where I was kind of coming from at the time. I think it'll be kind of interesting to kind of go through. All of these are out on PackerReport.com prior to the season, so you can go back and check it. I think I actually got more wrong than right, so it's not like I'm bragging here, but I figured it'd be kind of fun to go through these and see what, some of the consensus thoughts are, just some of my bold predictions prior to the season, and see where we kind of stand today now that Green Bay is 8-3, a little bit past the halfway mark of the season. So I wrote 4 individual articles and then one article entitled 12 Bold Predictions for the Season. So I have 16 total. I'm going to kind of go through this relatively quick. So let me start with my first article. I'll kind of go through it in chronological order from the first one I wrote up until right before the season began. So my first one was the Packers would have the biggest advantage with no fans in the stadium, comparing them to all 31 of the other NFL teams. And I think that's correct. And obviously my premise of the article was that Rodgers would, be able to use his full cadence and get people to jump off sides in all 16 games. It's one of the true legitimate cheat codes in all of the NFL, him being able to get players to jump off sides and get free plays. Also him be able to, get some of those 12 men on the field penalties as well. Teams have been astutely aware of some of the penalties and really trying to avoid them and make sure that they don't jump off sides and give Green Bay free plays. But it's still such an advantage for Aaron Rodgers to have his full cadence available to him in all 16 games. So I'm chalking that one up as a win. Number 2 on my list, or number 2 article that I wrote, was why an Aaron Rodgers trade could happen sooner than you think. And that sounds on the surface like a major L. Let's go through it in a second here. I probably should have reworded it in hindsight to say how an Aaron Rodgers trade could happen sooner than you think. Because really, if you dig into the article, I was very, very specific in 3 things that had to happen in order for Aaron Rodgers to get traded this next offseason. And number 1 was that he would have to basically remain the same quarterback that he was over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. If he was really great and having an MVP level season, then there would be no reason for the Packers to want to trade him. And if he was really struggling, then they might be better just keeping him because the teams aren't going to trade for him what Green Bay would want for him anyway. So the first premise was that he'd have to stay the same, and I think that has not happened. And, I would make a strong argument that Aaron Rodgers is much better this season than he has been over the course of the last 2-3 seasons. He's much more efficient. He's much more accurate. He's getting the ball out on time. He's keeping his eyes up. He's better protected. The scheme seems better. All those things are true, but Rodgers is playing, I would say, maybe significantly is the wrong word, but he's playing much, much better than he was over the course of the last few seasons and really having an MVP caliber season. So number 1 on the checkbox, and remember all 3 of these had to be true. Number 1, not true. Number 2 was that Jordan Love would have to come in day 1 and show that he is as advertised or better really from day 1, and that he could be ready to play by year 2. That's strike 2. That did not happen at all. And to maybe no fault of Jordan Love, there was, of course, the pandemic and him not getting a preseason, no rookie minicamp, no OTAs, any of that, a limited training camp. The snaps that I got to see in training camp would have been like his, rookie mini camp and OTA basically. So he was well behind the 8 ball, but by no way, shape, or form is he ready to play at this point. In fact, I think that's very evidenced by the fact that Tim Boyle has beat him out for the number 2 job so far this season. So strike 2 on that list. And then number 3 is that some team this upcoming offseason would have to offer a boatload for Aaron Rodgers, which I think is feasible. I don't think that part will not be true. But again, the premise of the article is all 3 of those things would have to be true. 2 of them are unequivocally not. So, while the article may seem like a major loss, the premise of the article and the meat of the article is really, still legitimate. So I'm not going to take a win or a loss there because it wasn't necessarily a prediction, but I still thought it'd be kind of fun to cover. All right, number 3 was Allen Lazard won't follow in the footsteps of Geronimo Allison and Jarrett Boykin, basically saying he's not going to become this one-year wonder wide receiver that just falls off the face of the earth like Gmo and Jarrett Boykin did. And I think that's 1,000,000% correct. And I know people are already kind of forgetting about Allen Lazard in his huge game against New Orleans before going out with a core injury, but even since coming back, he looks good. I know he hasn't had huge stats, but had the touchdown this week. Does all the little things, as Aaron Rodgers mentioned this week in his press conference as well. Actually, I think it was with Pat McAfee, if I'm remembering correctly, but he does every little thing that you would possibly ask of anyone out on the field. He's a damn good wide receiver and a true number 2 in this league, so I'm chalking that one up as a win. Number 4 was an article that I titled "Versatility Could Be Key in 2020." The versatility of the offensive line, Elton Jenkins, John Runyon, Lucas Patrick, Rick Wagner, Billy Turner, all of them playing a variety of different positions. Raven Green playing some safety and some hybrid linebacker. Darnell Savage being used at a variety of safety positions. The running backs being able to be used as wide receivers. Tyler Ervin basically being a receiver that can also play running back in the game that they needed him to against San Francisco because of the injuries and the COVID stuff. Versatility has been huge for the team this year, and that's even with a couple of the players that I had mentioned on that list, John Lovett and Josiah DeGuara, going out for the season, and their versatility that they have as well. So that's another one where I think I'm going to chalk up a win. All right, let's go to my 12 bold predictions. This is where things get a little bit hairy. So my first one is that Ty Summers would be one of the breakout players of the season. That has not obviously been the case. And I think the disappointing aspect is he got his chance. And I saw that part coming. I thought he would get his chance this season. He did get his chance with the injuries to Kirksey, Kamal Martin, Chris Barnes being out for a while. He got significant playing time out on the field in a few games and unfortunately just wasn't able to make the most of it. So that one definitely chalking up as a loss. Number 2 on my bold predictions, Rick Wagner starts every game at right tackle. Another huge L. Billy Turner very much exceeding expectations and really being that core starter at right tackle when he's been healthy. Rick Wagner got the start early at right tackle simply because Turner was hurt, but as soon as Turner was healthy, he was back in there starting, and Rick Wagner has really been almost the 8th offensive lineman at this point. You had your 5 starters, including Lane Taylor, then Lucas Patrick was next up, and then really John Runyon after that, and now Rick Wagner is kind of that 8th offensive lineman. So certainly not the everyday starter at any position, much less right tackle. Number 3, Kabian Ento will make the 53-man roster. I technically got this one right. He did make the initial 53, and then once the 53 was announced, they placed him on IR so they could bring him back at some point. He has not come back up until this point, but technically, Kabian Ento did make the 53-man roster. Number 4, Tim Boyle starts a game. It's not looking great, and to be fair, let's hope that he doesn't start a game. I guess you could make an argument that week 17, maybe they have a situation where that game is either they've wrapped up the bye or they've only could get the number 2 or 3 seed, and there's no opportunity to move up or down, and maybe he gets a start. Even in that scenario, I think Rodgers probably starts and Boyle just comes in early in that situation, but not looking great for Tim Boyle getting a start in a game this season. And again, hopefully that's not the case. Devonte Adams has a 100-catch, 1,500-yard, 10-touchdown season. This is one I probably should have looked up ahead of time to see where Devonte Adams was at. I'm going to see if I can get his stats up here while I'm looking at this. I know he's on pace, certainly, for the touchdowns. So 100 catches, 1,500 yards, and 10 touchdowns was the prediction. So far this season, he is at 74 receptions, 908 yards, and 11 touchdowns. So he's definitely going to get there, assuming no injuries. He's definitely going to get there on receptions. He's already there on touchdowns. He's about 600 yards short, which isn't undoable, but it's probably not likely. I wouldn't put it by him, but I think it's safe to say had he not gotten injured, he would have met all 3 of those, but we'll see what happens the rest of the way. Next one, Jair Alexander will intercept at least 6 passes. That is not going to happen. Maybe it still could, but that would be a pretty incredible end of the season for Jair. He just doesn't get the ball thrown enough his way to get those type of interceptions. And frankly, when he hasn't been able to hold on to some of them. So that's looking like an incorrect prediction. Tyler Ervin will have a punt return or kick return for a touchdown. We'll see. He needs to get back healthy for that to happen. Still wouldn't put it by him. I still think he has that explosiveness, but the blocking has not been there, so that one's not looking super likely. Aaron Rodgers will finish the season with a 100-plus passer rating. Like my chances there. Packers will win all 3 NFC North road games. They beat the Minnesota Vikings. They still have Chicago and Detroit on the road, so we'll see what happens in those 2 games, but they're off to a good start so far. They will be heavily favored against both Detroit and Chicago in those final 2 games, so I think the odds there are fairly good that I could get that one right. Kingsley Keke will be a breakout star. Unfortunately, I don't think that's been the case. He's shown flashes, and he's definitely improved going into his second season, but definitely has not been a breakout star by any stretch of the imagination. My big L, my worst one yet, Corey Linsley will be released or traded prior to the start of the season. I think it's safe to say that didn't happen. The reason being was, of course, I saw the fact that they had Elton Jenkins and Lucas Patrick, who we've seen are very, very capable. It would not have shocked me if they put Lane Taylor, Lucas Patrick, and Elton Jenkins on the interior to start. Still have John Runyon Jr. and Billy Turner, Rick Wagner, a couple of those guys who can switch in and move different positions. We just saw this last game that Green Bay's offensive line, even without Corey Linsley, can be pretty darn good. Against Chicago, we saw that. So plus they would have saved a ton of money, which they are very much in need of money next season. So do you want Corey Linsley at 1 year, $10 million, or go with still a solid offensive line and save the money and roll it over to next year, so maybe you can keep Aaron Jones, Kevin King, and so on and so forth. Corey Linsley's been phenomenal. They obviously did not make that move, which was the correct route to take. I'm glad they kept him, and I wrote that in the article as well. I did not want that to happen. I was hoping he would stay on the team, but definitely I will gladly take the L on that one, that they did not release or trade Corey Linsley prior to the season. And then my very last one, Green Bay will finish 11-5 on the season. Let's hope that one's wrong. I think they have the ability to finish better than that. I think even anything below 12-4 would be somewhat disappointing at this point. I think it's worth pointing out that even if they did finish 11-5, I think most people would have signed up for that at the beginning of the season. But at this point, I think really losing anything outside of the Titans game would have some level of disappointment. And I think everyone expects Green Bay to be in that Titans game at minimum as well, and they'll be favored in every game from here on out, barring any crazy injuries. So we'll see. Again, I'm hoping I'm wrong on that one, but that was my final one. Green Bay would finish 11-5 on the season. Hopefully this was fun for you. It was fun for me to look back at my off-season writing and see what I got right, what I got wrong. Some hits, certainly some misses. I'll try to do better next year on my bold predictions, but at some point, if they're bold predictions, you'd better get some wrong. Otherwise, they probably weren't that bold to begin with in the first place. Thanks for joining me and listening in to another edition of the Pack a Day Podcast here on YouTube. Make sure to check out our Pack a Day Podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, that being the audio version, of course. I'll be right back here tomorrow as always. And until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.